Very good morning, everyone. Welcome to the show. Our top story this Monday morning. The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy will travel to Washington, D.C. today to meet with the U.S. President Donald Trump, joined by a cohort of European leaders, including the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. Now, this visit follows Trump's meeting with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin on Friday. Kyiv and its European allies are looking to respond to the fallout from the summit, including the U.S. president's apparent shift towards pursuing a permanent peace deal for the war in Ukraine, rather than a ceasefire first, in an approach more aligned with Moscow's position. Ahead of today's meeting, Trump has put the responsibility to end the war on Zelenskyy, saying the Ukrainian president could end the conflict almost immediately if he wanted to. In a post on Truth Social, Trump also appeared to take several key points off the table, including Ukrainian membership to NATO and the regaining of Crimea, which Russia annexed back in 2014. Now, according to several reports, the Russian president presented his conditions to end the war during his meeting with Trump on Friday, discussing territorial concessions and the potential for security guarantees in post-war Ukraine. Putin reportedly called for Ukraine's withdrawal from the Donetsk and Luhansk regions in the east of the country, saying Russia could freeze the front lines in the regions of Kherson and Zaporizhia in the south, should other demands be met. Zelenskyy, with the backing of his European leaders, has consistently rejected the possibility of territorial concessions, saying last week that the Donbas region would be a springboard for future new Russian offensives. Now, speaking alongside the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen yesterday, the Ukrainian President, Mr. Zelenskyy, reiterated his position regarding territory, urging a trilateral meeting with his U.S. and Russian counterparts. Listen in.
The constitution of Ukraine makes it impossible to give up territory or trade land. Since the territorial issue is so important, it should be discussed only by the leaders of Ukraine and Russia at the trilateral Ukraine, United States, Russia. So far, Russia gives no sign that trilateral will happen, and if Russia refuses, then new sanctions must follow.
With regards to any territorial questions in Ukraine, our position is clear. International borders cannot be changed by force. These are decisions to be made by Ukraine and Ukraine alone. And these decisions cannot be taken without Ukraine at the table.
So that is the European perspective. Now, according to the U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, Putin agreed to allow Europe and the U.S. to provide post-war security guarantees to Ukraine, which Witkoff described as protection similar, I reiterate the word similar, to Article 5 in the NATO alliance. Now, Kyiv has long sought membership of the military alliance. However, Moscow has consistently said this should be off the table, a position Putin reportedly reiterated on Friday. Speaking to Fox News on Sunday, Witkoff was asked what the U.S. is willing to commit.
It means that the United States is potentially prepared to be able to give Article 5 security guarantees, but not from NATO, directly from the United States and other European countries. That is big. I mean, really big.
Does it mean boots on the ground? What does it mean, but logistically?
I think part of the discussion that we're going to have on Monday throughout the day, because there's going to be breakout sessions there, is exactly the specifics of what the Ukrainians feel that they need.
Now, Friday's summit ended without an agreement on a ceasefire or peace in Ukraine, with Trump saying there's no deal until there is a deal. However, Moscow is yet to face any fresh sanctions from the U.S. President Trump had previously threatened severe consequences for Russia should peace not be agreed. However, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, suggested fresh sanctions were incompatible with the push for peace. And with Trump's apparent shift towards the pursuit of a peace agreement, NBC's Kristen Walker also asked Rubio if a ceasefire is now off the table.
No, it's not off the table. I think what the president said, in fact, you just read it on the air a few moments ago, it was agreed to by all that the best way to end this conflict is through a full peace deal. There's no doubt about that. I mean, who would be against the fact if tomorrow we came to you and said we have a full peace deal and it's done? I think that's the best way to end the war. Now, whether there needs to be a ceasefire on the way there, well, we've advocated for that. Unfortunately, the Russians, as of now, have not agreed to that. But the ideal here, what we're aiming for here is not a ceasefire. What we ultimately are aiming for is an end to this war.